The first Christmas text came at 7:12 in the morning. Please don't ruin Christmas this year. I stared at the screen while my coffee went cold. That was how my family usually started December 25th. Not with Merry Christmas. With a warning. For years, I had been blamed whenever something went wrong. The turkey was dry. My fault. The decorations looked cheap. My fault. Someone forgot a gift. Apparently, still my fault. What nobody mentioned was that I also paid for almost everything. The house rental. The groceries. The catered dinner. The children's gifts. Even the ugly sweater contest prizes my brother insisted were tradition. My name is Daniel, and I had finally reached the point where I was tired of being treated like the family problem and the family credit card at the same time. So that morning, I stayed home. No airport. No grocery store. No rented hall. No last-minute shopping. I made myself 2 eggs, poured another cup of coffee, and turned my phone face down. At 10:30, my sister called. I didn't answer. At 11:15, my mother texted. Are you coming? I replied with 2 words. No. I'm staying home. The response came almost immediately. You're really doing this? I didn't explain. For once, I wanted to see what Christmas looked like when I wasn't quietly holding it together. By noon, I heard nothing. That felt strange. Then, at 3:40, my brother called. I ignored it. At 5:02, my mother called again. Then my sister. Then my brother. By 6 o'clock, my phone was vibrating across the kitchen counter. Something had gone very wrong. And judging by how many people were calling me at once, they had finally discovered what Christmas actually cost. I let the phone keep vibrating. Then my brother left a voicemail. Dan, call me back. The caterer says the payment didn't go through. I almost laughed. Almost. I opened my banking app. There was no charge. Of course there wasn't. I had cancelled the catering payment 3 weeks earlier. Not out of spite. I simply decided I wasn't paying for an event I wasn't invited to organize. Another voicemail came in. This one was from my sister. The rental company says nobody paid the balance. I sat at the kitchen table. For years, I had handled those payments quietly. Nobody saw the invoices. Nobody saw the credit card statements. They just showed up, ate dinner, exchanged gifts, and complained when something wasn't perfect. I called my mother. She answered immediately. Daniel, what did you do? Nothing. The food isn't here. I know. You said you were handling it. No, I said. You assumed I was. She became quiet. Then she asked, what about the presents? I didn't buy them. She sounded genuinely confused. But you always do. I looked around my living room. There was no mountain of wrapped boxes. No bags from department stores. No receipts scattered across the counter. Just my small Christmas tree. You're right, I said. I always did. She didn't answer. Then she asked something that bothered me. Why would you do this to your family? I leaned back. I didn't do anything to Christmas. She stayed silent. I just stopped paying for it. She hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. At 6:18, my brother called again. This time I answered. His voice was low. Dan, Mom says you've been paying for all of this. I looked at the clock. Yes. He didn't speak. Then he asked, how long? I stared at the Christmas tree. Long enough. He exhaled slowly. Then he said something I hadn't expected. None of us knew. I looked at my phone. That was the point. My brother stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then he asked, how much? I knew what he meant. How much have you been spending? I didn't give him a number. Look at the old group messages. He said he would. I hung up. 10 minutes later, he called again. Dad's old house rental was $1,200. Correct. The caterer was almost $3,000. Usually. And you bought all the gifts. Most of them. He sounded embarrassed. I didn't enjoy hearing that. I wasn't trying to make anyone feel guilty. I just wanted them to understand what they had been criticizing. My sister called next. She sounded angry. You should have told us. I smiled. I tried. When? Every time someone complained. That isn't telling us. Okay. I didn't argue. Then she asked, why didn't you just ask us to contribute? That question stayed with me. Because I had asked. Years ago. Once. My mother had said, "We're family. Why are you keeping score?" So I stopped keeping score. I just kept paying. Until I couldn't ignore what it was doing to me. At 4:45, my brother sent me a screenshot. It was a message from the caterer. They had quoted the cancellation policy. Someone had apparently tried to reinstate the booking that afternoon. The deposit was non-refundable. My brother asked if I could pay the remaining balance so they could still have dinner. I didn't respond. Then my sister texted, "Please, Dan. The kids are expecting Christmas." I stared at that message. The kids weren't responsible for any of this. But neither were they the reason I had been treated badly. I replied, "I hope they have a good Christmas." Then I put the phone down. At 5:30, my mother called. Her voice was softer. "Daniel, your father would never have done this." That one hurt. I almost answered. Instead, I looked at the empty chair beside my Christmas tree. My father had died 8 years earlier. And suddenly I wondered whether my family had learned the wrong lesson from him. Because Dad had always paid for Christmas too. I just hadn't realized until that moment how much of the tradition had really been his. And now they were finally learning what happened when the person paying stopped. At 5:47, my brother called again. "Dan, we need to talk." I answered. "What happened?" "The rental company cancelled the room." I wasn't surprised. "What about dinner?" "Cancelled too." He sounded embarrassed. Then he said, "Mom is blaming you." "She usually does." "This isn't funny." "I know." He lowered his voice. "There's something else." I waited. "The gift cards. What about them?" "They're all under your name." I sat up. Apparently, my sister had gone through the shopping bags and found receipts from previous years. Every year, I had purchased gift cards for the adults. Restaurants. Gas stations. Department stores. Even the babysitter. They had assumed those gifts came from different people because I wrapped them separately. My brother laughed bitterly. "We've been opening your presents and thanking everybody else." I didn't know what to say. Then he asked the question I'd expected eventually. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" I thought about it. Because I wanted to give without needing applause. He went quiet. Then I heard my mother in the background. She was asking what I had said. My brother covered the phone. A few seconds later, he came back. "Mom wants to know if you'll still pay for dinner." "No. Even now?" "No." He sighed. Then something happened that I hadn't expected. He said, "Okay." I waited. He continued. "We'll figure it out." That was the first time anyone in my family had said those words. Not "Dan will handle it." Not "Dan will fix it." "We'll figure it out." I hung up. For the first time that day, I felt a little lighter. Then, at 6:03, my sister sent a photo. It showed the Christmas dinner table. Empty. No food. No gifts. No rented decorations. Just 6 people sitting around a table they had assumed would somehow be filled. Under the picture, she wrote, "We finally understand." I stared at those 3 words. Then another message appeared. This one was from my mother. "How much did you spend every Christmas?" I knew that answer would change everything. I didn't answer my mother right away. I opened an old spreadsheet on my laptop. I had started it years ago because I wanted to track holiday expenses. Not for them. For myself. The numbers were all there. Rental costs. Food. Gifts. Travel. Decorations. Emergency purchases. I added everything from the last 5 Christmases. The total made me sit back. $31,840. I took a screenshot. Then I sent it to the family group. Nobody responded for several minutes. Then my brother wrote, 31,000. Yes. My sister replied. I thought we all contributed. I answered honestly. You did. There was another pause. She asked, how much? I looked through the spreadsheet. My brother had contributed $200 one year. My sister had brought dessert twice. My mother had paid for a few bottles of wine. I wasn't keeping score. I was just answering the question. My mother finally called. I answered. Daniel, this is unbelievable. I agree. You should have told us. I did. You never said it was this much. You never asked. Silence. Then she said something I didn't expect. Your father used to do the same thing. I looked down at the spreadsheet. I know. No, she said quietly. You don't. She told me Dad had paid for almost every Christmas when I was growing up. He had never complained. He never told anyone. He just made sure everything was there. My mother admitted she had assumed I was simply continuing his tradition. I sat there for a moment. That explained something. Every year, when something went wrong, everyone looked at me. Not because I had ruined Christmas. Because they had unconsciously made me responsible for maintaining it. I told my mother I wasn't angry. I just don't want Christmas to depend on one person anymore. She started crying. Then she said, "We should have thanked you." I swallowed. Yeah. That was all I could say. Then my brother sent another message. "Can we still have Christmas tomorrow?" I smiled. "Sure." He asked where. I typed. "Everyone brings something." For the first time, nobody asked me what I was bringing. The next morning, my brother showed up at my door carrying 2 grocery bags. He looked tired. "Mom sent me." I stepped aside. "What did she send?" He held up a bag. "Potatoes." I laughed. "That's a start." He smiled. Then my sister arrived with her husband. She had a pie. Her husband carried a turkey. Neither of them asked what else I had prepared. That felt strange. In a good way. We spent the next hour cooking in my kitchen. Nobody complained about the decorations. Nobody asked where the expensive gifts were. Nobody expected me to fix anything. My mother arrived last. She stood in the doorway for a moment. Then she looked at me. "I owe you an apology." I nodded. She walked inside. "I blamed you for Christmas being stressful for years." "You did. I thought you were controlling everything." "I wasn't." She looked around the kitchen. "I know that now." My brother was peeling potatoes. My sister was setting the table. Her husband was trying to figure out the oven. It wasn't perfect. The turkey was slightly overcooked. The pie had cracked. The table looked uneven. And nobody cared. Around noon, my mother pulled me aside. "Why did you really stop paying?" I thought about lying. Instead, I told her the truth. I was tired of being needed but not appreciated. She looked down. Then she hugged me. I let her. Later, everyone sat around the table. My brother raised his glass. "To Daniel." I shook my head. "No." He smiled. "To all of us." That was better. After dinner, my niece handed me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. It said, "Thank you for showing us that Christmas isn't about who pays for it." I folded the note carefully. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my brother. He had just checked the old family budget. Apparently, they had calculated what everyone would contribute next year. Nobody had assigned me a number. They had assigned themselves one. For the first time, I realized they weren't just changing Christmas. They were changing how they saw me. Christmas dinner ended around 9. Nobody rushed out. That was unusual. Normally, everyone left as soon as the dishes were cleared. This time, we stayed in the living room. My mother sat beside the tree. My brother was on the floor with his kids. My sister was showing everyone pictures from her phone. It felt ordinary. That was probably why it meant so much. Then my brother looked at me. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Were you really going to stop paying forever?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "I think we deserve that." My sister looked at him. "We did." My mother didn't say anything. Then she reached into her purse. She pulled out an envelope. I thought it was another apology. It wasn't. Inside was a check. My name was written on it. She had calculated her share of the previous year's expenses. Not everything. Just what she believed she owed. I pushed it back. "Mom, I don't want this." "You're taking it." "I don't need it." "I know." She looked at me. "But I need to give it." I finally accepted it. Then my brother pulled out his phone. He had created a shared family account for future holidays. Everyone would contribute monthly. He had already added the others. Then he looked at me. "You're not an administrator." I laughed. "Good. You're just family." That sentence hit harder than I expected. For years, I had been the organizer. The pair. The person everyone blamed when the perfect Christmas wasn't perfect. Nobody had really asked what I wanted. Until now. Before everyone left, my mother stopped at the door. "Daniel?" "Yeah?" "Next year, what do you want for Christmas?" I thought about it. Then I smiled. "Nothing expensive." She waited. "I just want everyone here." She nodded. You'll have that. After the door closed, I stood alone in the quiet living room. The tree lights reflected against the window. My phone was finally silent. And for the first time in years, that silence felt like peace. The following Christmas was different. Nobody asked me to book anything. Nobody sent me a list. Nobody assumed I was paying. 3 weeks before Christmas, my brother created a group message. The first text said, "Who wants to host?" My sister volunteered. Then everyone started discussing food. I watched the messages for a while before typing anything. Finally, I wrote, "I'll bring dessert." My brother replied with a laughing emoji. "Only dessert. Only dessert." That was the deal. When Christmas came, I arrived carrying one homemade pie. The house was full. People were cooking. Kids were running through the hallway. Someone had burned the first batch of rolls. Nobody blamed me. My mother walked over and hugged me. "Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas." She smiled. You know what I realized? What? We never needed a perfect Christmas. I looked around. She continued. We just needed everyone to stop expecting one person to make it perfect. I nodded. That was exactly it. Later, my brother pulled me aside. We calculated everything this year. I laughed. Please don't tell me. He smiled. Everyone paid their share. Good. And nobody complained. Even better. He looked at me seriously. Dan, I'm sorry we treated you like that. I nodded. I know. There wasn't anything else to say. That evening, we sat around the table. The food wasn't fancy. The decorations weren't expensive. The gifts weren't impressive. But nobody was pretending. And somehow, it was the best Christmas we'd had in years. Before I went home, my niece hugged me. Uncle Dan? Yeah? Are you going to pay for Christmas next year? I laughed. No. She grinned. Good. I smiled. Because she understood something the adults had taken years to learn. Christmas wasn't something one person was supposed to carry. It was something everyone was supposed to share. And after years of being blamed whenever the holiday wasn't perfect, I finally stopped trying to make it perfect. I just showed up. That was enough.